Hey, good morning, friends. My friends, today is Tuesday, July the 8th, 2025, and the time now is 7:43 a.m. So, friends, I want to talk about Brazil. I am going to issue or make comments or ask questions about 4 specific topics relating to Brazil. These topics are: number 1, there is an ongoing BRICS summit in Brazil. So Brazil is currently hosting the BRICS summit. Number 2, Donald Trump threatens to impose an additional 10% tariff on BRICS partners or countries that he claimed will side with BRICS. Basically, friends, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, has declared the BRICS organization as an anti-American policy or politics or organization. Number 2, Donald Trump defends or has issued statements defending Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro. Jair Bolsonaro, the former president of Brazil, is currently going through trial. This is because of the alleged accusation or the idea that he that he was one of the planners in the recently failed coup which happened in Brazil. So about 2022-ish, following the recent Brazilian presidential election, it is said that Jair Bolsonaro, even though he was supposed to have been in the United States or in Washington, D.C. at the time, it is said that his supporters did partake in a coup in an attempt to overturn the Brazilian election, which Lula da Silva won. Now for number 3, the current president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, claps back at Donald Trump and the United States. The president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, claps back at Donald Trump and the United States. He issued statements saying that Brazil is no longer subjugated, or that Brazil is not going to be subjugated to the United States or to Donald Trump, and that the era which Brazil was subjugated to the United States is in the past. Lula da Silva's statement basically stressing that the United States should mind and Donald Trump should mind its own business or their own business, and that it is unprofessional for the United States president to go on Truth Social, on his social media account or platform, to make threats against a foreign entity, and that the situation in Brazil is a Brazilian situation, it's a Brazilian domestic serving issue. So this is all very interesting, guys. Brazil is in the news. Now, my friends, this is the first ever video of Brazil or about Brazil or for Brazil. If you're new to this channel or if you're watching my videos for the first time, I want you to know that every significant or prominent international institution in the world does have at least one playlist on this channel. However, friends, every country in the world has at least 2 playlists on this channel. One is named the country's name and the other domestic, the country's name. So this is how it is set up on this channel, the Echoing Voice. For example, the country's name playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas that focus specifically on the country's relationship or activities within its region, with countries and organizations within its region, and the country's geopolitical perspective or position around the world, with countries and institutions around the world. In this case, friends, we are talking about Brazil. Therefore, the Brazil playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas that focus specifically on Brazil's interaction or relations with countries in its region, in South America, in the Americas, or in Latin America, and also with countries and institutions around the world. Now, for this video which you're watching, it's going to be in the Brazil playlist. It is focused on both domestic and geopolitical incidents or activities. For example, Brazil is currently hosting the BRICS summit. Brazil is interacting right now with countries such as India, China, Russia, South Africa, and other BRICS partners and countries or members. Therefore, this is a geopolitical video. But we are also talking about the current trial of Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, which in this case is a domestic situation or incident. However, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, has made threat against Brazil or criticized Brazil for the current trial of Bolsonaro, which in this case, the Brazilian president, Lula da Silva, basically is telling Donald Trump and the United States to shut its mouth or their mouth or his mouth and focus on their own business. And that Brazil is a sovereign independent country that is neither subjugated, is not going to be subjugated to or by the United States. So in this case, there is both a geopolitical, international, and domestic component to this as well. However, friends, for the domestic, the country's name playlist, it is going to feature videos, talks, programs, or ideas that focus specifically on the country's domestic situation. We are talking in this case about economics, infrastructure, youth and unemployment. We are talking about educational, academics, and so on and so on and so on. Stability within the country and so on. In this case, for the domestic Brazil playlist, we are talking in this case about the current situation in Brazil regarding the ongoing trial of the former president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro. Therefore, the domestic Brazil playlist will feature videos, talks, programs, and ideas about the current situation in Brazil. Whether we are talking about youth and unemployment, whether we are talking about security, situation in Brazil, gun violence, poverty, homelessness, and so on and so on and so on. Now friends, please continue to watch my videos, continue to be a member of this channel, The Echoing Voice, which I am going to continue to grow. And if you are not a member, please join us and share your ideas. Let it be known. Now friends, for topic number 1, as I said earlier, there is an ongoing summit in Brazil, an ongoing BRICS summit in Brazil. Brazil basically is welcoming world leaders from around the world, and in this case specifically, the global south, if you exclude Russia, which can be categorized as a global north country. So it is very interesting, BRICS continues to grow. But we are talking in this case at a time when the United States and Europe are dying in terms of their economics, in terms of their domestic, in terms of their international or global reach or influence. Yes, the United States is going to be powerful still. Yes, Europe is going to be powerful. But there are many who are talking in this case that the world is currently experiencing a change and that the world is transitioning to a multinational or to a multilateral or to multi-hegemonic activity, or that the United States and Europe, the United States and the Western sphere are not going to be the sole power in the world. That we are going to be having China, Russia, India, the United States. Basically, we are looking at a multipolar system in the world. Now, friends, in terms of this change, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, is coming out and attacking BRICS countries or members. He is saying that he is going to issue an additional 10% on countries that side with a BRICS alliance, and that the BRICS alliance is nothing but anti-American policy or government or politics. Now friends, I am not going to say that these countries are siding with BRICS, because the entire world and the global south most especially is not interested in siding with anyone. The global south wants to be independent. These countries are partners with BRICS because they've come to realize, and Africa is strongly realizing this, when they are partners with the United States and the West, they get nothing, no benefit. When they're partners with Russia and China, and most especially China, they get some infrastructure. But I don't think Donald Trump is going to impose 10% tariff on countries that don't give a damn, countries that the United States has no impact on. What Donald Trump is doing is that he is threatening the weaker and powerless countries, and most especially countries in Africa, in the Caribbean, Latin America, and Asia, South Asia, basically threatening them that if you join BRICS, this is what's going to happen to you. But the fallacy of that policy is that when Trump came to power, he cut USAID. So as of now, we should say that countries around the world are not receiving aid from the United States. Therefore, why listen to the United States or what Donald Trump is saying? But countries right now and government are stressing that they are not going to be bullied. Therefore, it seems that Donald Trump is just talking nonsense, and this is going to backfire tremendously against Donald Trump and the United States. Now, friends, in terms of Brazil, I stressed earlier that the former president of Brazil, Bolsonaro, is currently going through trial for the coup attempt, basically an attempt to overturn Brazil's previous presidential election, which saw Lula da Silva coming back into office. Donald Trump criticized Brazil and stressed that Brazilian trial of Bolsonaro is nothing but a witch hunt. Now, there is a similarity to what happened to Bolsonaro in terms of what Bolsonaro's supporters did, trying to overturn the election in Brazil, to what Donald Trump's supporters did in terms of January 6, 2021, when they tried to overturn the U.S. presidential election. And for that, Donald Trump basically hasn't paid. In terms of the United States, the president seemed to be powerful, and those in office who are his allies, the Republicans, are basically protecting him. This is because Donald Trump did what many Republicans want to do, what many Republicans support. Therefore, friends, Donald Trump protecting Bolsonaro is not only him protecting a friend. This is Donald Trump protecting himself. Because if Bolsonaro get trial and Bolsonaro get convicted and sent to jail, because it is said that he could face about 12 years in jail for the coup attempt to overturn the presidential election. So far, Bolsonaro had been banned from running for president in the next election, 2026, that he cannot run for president until 2030. But if he is convicted and sent to jail, perhaps that generates the momentum in the United States for Donald Trump to also face persecution. Recently, countries around the world have been persecuting their presidents for misbehavior. One recent and prominent country around the world experienced this, and we are talking about South Korea, persecute its president or prime minister for misdeed. So it seems that Donald Trump is not only attacking Lula da Silva or Brazil, criticizing them for the trial of Bolsonaro, but also Donald Trump protecting and defending himself. Because there are parallels to what Bolsonaro's supporters did, trying to overturn Brazil's presidential election, to what Donald Trump's supporters did in 2021, January 6, trying to overturn the U.S. presidential election, which Joe Biden won. Friends, please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. Now, friends, in terms of the fourth and final topic, the president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, has been clapping back at Donald Trump. Friends, recently I made a video, and I stressed in the video that countries around the world, and in my videos I stress African countries most especially, should be willing and ready and prepared to insult the United States back when the United States insult them. And this is how and why the United States could stop its nonsense. And in this case, Donald Trump could stop his insults of governments and countries and leaders around the world. Therefore, perhaps it is what the current president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, did. He has been clapping back at Donald Trump and the United States and stressing that Brazil is a serving country that is not going to take nonsense from Donald Trump and the United States. That the trial of Bolsonaro is a serving issue, it is Brazil's issue and has nothing to do with the United States. He even criticized Donald Trump for going on Truth Social and making threats and stating that it is not professional for a country, a government of a country such as the United States, to do such a thing. Donald Trump has basically been disrespecting countries and leaders around the world and government, and in this case, humiliating himself and the United States. It is interesting that even one Brazilian official, one Brazilian minister, basically claps back at Donald Trump and the United States. Now, friends, Please tell me what you think, and I really want to know what you think. But friends, I am going to end here. I want to thank you for being a member of the Echoing Voice community, my friends, but most especially and most importantly, all important, my friends, I want to thank you a lot for watching the Echoing Voice. Peace, my friends. Peace.